So America's own military admits that it would be defeated by China, and yet President Trump, by pirating oil destined for China, is actually provoking China.
China sent a direct message to Donald Trump and put all of Washington on high alert. Beijing reacted forcefully after the United States seized a Chinese oil tanker linked to Venezuelan oil.
If you don't know, Russia's already built a secret military base in Venezuela. And this is how Venezuela has already turned into a nuclear power. They will destroy the United States, everyone.
What's going on, everybody? Dr. Vasquez here, coming to you on December 27th. And I saw a very interesting video this morning. And so that kind of forms the reason for my doing this video. So again, today is December 27th of 2025. And apparently, I'm looking for it right now, apparently Trump sent out a post on his social media, which he's notorious for doing. He sent out a post on December 25th, so this was Christmas Day. And what he said in that post, other than insulting people as he commonly does and threatening people as he commonly does, and pretending to be the victim as he commonly does, he says at the end of his post, which I'll provide for you within this video, and also I'll post the link. He says, "Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas."
Ah, there's your mother. You should keep a better eye on him if he's to be king one day. It'd be unfortunate if anything were to happen to him. Or to his beautiful mother.
Well, obviously, that is completely inappropriate and out of place. And I think many of us may have intuited that that is inappropriate and out of place, especially for somebody who can actually push the button on nuclear weapons. So again, he says, "Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas." Immediately signed thereafter, President Donald J. Trump. So interestingly, and somewhat randomly, I suppose, except for the algorithms that kind of direct our lives these days, I did see a video this morning from a person who I don't know anything about, but she describes herself as a marriage and family therapist. So I presume she has like a master's degree in psychology or social work or something like that. And so I'm going to play the entirety of her brief clip wherein she describes, with better vocabulary than I had, she describes how to interpret this quote, which probably will be notorious among many notorious quotes from Trump. But again, he says, "Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas." So I'm going to show you her clip where she describes this. But before I do that, I want to go back to a different movie clip from the movie 300, which I think came out, I don't even remember when it came out. It was around 2005, I believe. A movie that I watched many, many times as I was going through medical school. So that's how I remember that it was around 2006 or 2005 when the movie came out. But I remember one part of that movie that connects with the conversation I'm obviously having right now. And that is, in a certain part of the movie, the Queen she had just finished a conversation with a man who was advising her, kind of a friend of hers. And she's kind of standing by this pool of water, and she puts her hand in the water. And immediately thereafter, another prominent person within the Spartan hierarchy shows up, surprising her, kind of startling her, and in possession of her son. And he says to her, "You should keep a better eye on your son, because it would be a shame if anything happened to him, especially if he's supposed to be king one day." And the exact way that he says it, and again, I'll show you the clip in just a moment, but he says, "You should keep a better eye on your son if he's to be king one day."
Ah, there's your mother. You should keep a better eye on him if he's to be king one day. It'd be unfortunate if anything were to happen to him. Or to his beautiful mother.
That's kind of a veiled threat, which I perceived at the time, but I didn't have the language for it, which I do now have the language for it after watching this psychotherapist or social worker's interpretation of the Trump quote. And that's how I'm connecting these together. So as I have said before, and I'm sure other people have said it as well, but we all have to have vocabulary in order to really grasp onto things that we see in our lives. So for example, again, I saw the movie 300, I guess now going on close to 20 years ago. And I remember that scene that seems to have contained a veiled threat. But I didn't have the vocabulary for it until today, after seeing this other video describing the Trump quote from this social worker, where she actually provides some advanced vocabulary. So I don't even think I had enough vocabulary to really interpret it, even though I could kind of sense what was going on. It seemed like a veiled threat when he says, you should keep an eye after your son if he's supposed to be king one day. And he says, would be a shame if anything happened to him or his mother or his beautiful mother or whatever. So obviously now with 20 years of additional experience, I would pay more attention to words like that because retrospectively, looking at my own experience, even including this year, I had a conversation with someone who gave me a few of those veiled threats. It's kind of like, oh, well, you better be careful with this, or you better look out for this, or you're vulnerable here. And I could kind of sense what he was saying as a threat. Or I guess here's the distinction. I interpreted what he said as a warning, like I needed his help. That's basically what he was trying to say. He was basically trying to say, you're vulnerable with a given situation and you need my help to be safe. So in a sense, it was a warning, but based on the way things played out, I think it was actually a veiled threat. And so if I had obviously the perspective I have retrospectively, if I had known then what I know now, then obviously things would have been different. But I think that having a better language for interpreting a veiled threat or a warning, people can say things that sound like a warning, like, hey, you better be careful. But what they're really doing is trying to intimidate you or intimidate me or intimidate us. So again, I'll show you the clip from 300, and I want you to think about it. Maybe I'll show you the clip first before I even do any of this conversation so that you can kind of feel it raw and then feel it with a bit more interpretation. So let me think. Another way of connecting all of this to our collective experience is some of you will remember, and all of you should remember, and all of you should know that in 2019, Bill Gates did a TED Talk where he talked about the importance of vaccines and how vaccines were going to supposedly save us. You should all know that, I believe in October of that year as well, again, 2019, before the COVID pandemic, a group of, high-level social controllers and billionaires and all this did a mock simulation of what would happen to the world if a COVID virus attacked the world. They did this like 2 or 3 months before the COVID pandemic was announced. Also, Anthony Fauci said that Trump is going, before the COVID pandemic happened, a year or two before, he said Trump has to be ready for a pandemic virus. So is that a warning or is it a threat based on insider information? Also, the president of Pfizer, in a meeting, again in 2019, before the COVID pandemic, he said, we have to be ready to distribute billions of doses of vaccine for, I believe he actually said, for the upcoming pandemic. He actually said that they were expecting a pandemic. Well, they had no way of legitimately knowing that the pandemic was going to come unless they had insider information. So some of you think that the COVID pandemic was a virus from a food market in Wuhan, China. some of you think that that's how this whole thing started. Spontaneously, it was just a freak of nature, and then it happened. Some of you are aware of the fact that the United States funded gain-of-function research to make pathogenic coronaviruses more aggressive. That was funded by the United States in Wuhan, China, at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And they created a virus that could escape immunity and escape vaccine-directed immunity as well. So, and they published that in 2016, at least 3 or 4 years before the so-called COVID pandemic. So, you know, some of you are faster learners, obviously, than others. And obviously, you know, again, like I said a minute ago, everything is more obvious retrospectively. But, you know, if you saw the comment by Trump saying this could be your last Christmas, you can interpret that as, oh, he's just being a random idiot or whatever. Or you can interpret that as, hey, maybe that's not just a warning, but maybe it's actually a threat. And maybe it's a threat based on insider information. Or maybe he's going to screw things up to make it come true. Because obviously he's provoking... I mean, just this past week, I mean, now the United States, I think, is bombing Nigeria or something like that. Did the American people vote to bomb Nigeria or whatever the African country is? I mean, I don't even know where it is. I was intentionally disconnected from social media for the past week.
Keep your eyes on Nigeria, everyone. Yes, Trump watched strikes on Christmas Day against ISIS in Nigeria because he claims they keep killing Christians in that country. But Trump doesn't do anything ever unless it's personal to him, unless he can personally gain monetarily on something. So why Nigeria? Well, just take a guess. It's one of the top producers of rare earth minerals in the world, one of the top 10. And that's what I've been saying this whole time. He is targeting places rich in rare earth minerals. Now he has the United States engaged in armed conflict there. And is he going to try and take Nigeria over? Probably not, but he can now use this as leverage to work some sort of deal for rare earth minerals in that country. And I wouldn't be surprised if that down the line happens. So save this video. Be sure to follow, subscribe, like it, comment what you think about this. We'll be coming back to this later in 2026, I'm sure. So be sure to share this with everyone you know, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
So, but you all know, as we all have had the experience of for the past couple weeks, that the United States, under Trump, under Pete Hegseth, I think his name is, has now been killing people and pirating cargo ships in international waters. So that's obviously going to provoke a lot of anger toward the United States, even though this is all being done by the personality of Donald Trump. So internationally, the perception of the United States these days is the personality of Donald Trump. Like, the United States, unfortunately, has lost, you know, its decades of arguably positive impression on the world. And now, you know, the United States is going downhill very quickly in terms of its, you know, international reputation because of doing things like pirating ships in international waters and killing people without any evidence of guilt. What else? And to the anger of China, I think some of that oil that the United States is now stealing, some of that oil was destined for China. Well, guess what? China is one of the United States' biggest creditors. And also China has a military that apparently would wipe the American military off the planet. According to Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Department of War. So America's own military admits that it would be defeated by China, and yet President Trump, by pirating oil destined for China, is actually provoking China. So, you know, you have the freedom to interpret that however you want. I would interpret that as a problem. When the President of the United States is telling people this could be your last Christmas, as he's actively provoking the United States' biggest creditor, and also provoking what is arguably the world's military superpower right now. So that's not none of that makes any sense unless your goal is complete chaos. And maybe that is the goal. So anyway, I'll show you these movie clips, and I'm going to show you, and I'll provide a link directly to what I consider to be a good interpretation. I've obviously had an interest in psychology, sociology, philosophy for many years, but I've never heard the language that is used in that brief clip. And I'm grateful for that clip. I'm also going to say I don't completely agree with everything that she says. But let's see. I did watch the clip, and then I typed out my own definitions that I looked up and referenced. Sorry, I have to put my password in order to see my screen.
Breaking news. Thanks for watching the Global News Network. If you don't know, Russia's already built a secret military base in Venezuela. And this is how Venezuela has already turned into a nuclear power. They will destroy the United States, everyone. But this is America's nightmare, is that Russia and China's already been arming Venezuela secretly for years. Oh, Venezuela's F-16 fighter jets, and they also have SUs, and they also have the JC-10 fighter jets. But this is what's important, everyone, that Russia will arm Venezuela with this Hiroshima missile, and let's just get to the bottom line. Factual points. Russian warships, nuclear submarines already operate in the Atlantic and the Caribbean, carrying long-range cruise, hypersonic and nuclear missiles. This Zircon and all these missiles can already strike the United States. They've already been positioned. They've already been set up. And also Venezuela has them.
China sent a direct message to Donald Trump and put all of Washington on high alert. Beijing reacted forcefully after the United States seized a Chinese oil tanker linked to Venezuelan oil. The response was harsh and without hesitation. China did not mince words. It demanded the immediate release of the tanker and issued a clear warning. If the U.S. does not back down, retaliation will follow. The message was direct. If Washington continues interfering in oil trade between China and Venezuela, consequences will come. China's foreign ministry accused the United States of abusing its power at sea and delivered a warning that echoed through the halls of power in Washington. The consequences could be severe. A ship intercepted in international waters. And now, an open confrontation between the world's two largest powers.
So let's see. Again, Trump says, enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas on December 25th, 2025. And then, like I said, I typed out the vocabulary that she uses in her video. And then I looked up what the words actually mean because I just wasn't familiar with it. So she talks about ambiguous threatening, stochastic intimidation, which I would call either an amorphous threat, a vague threat, or a veiled threat, which could be interpreted, again, as insider information or what is sometimes referred to as predictive programming. And again, we saw this with the COVID pandemic, going back to 2005 with the movie V for Vendetta, which perfectly describes a laboratory-created virus distributed by the government or the world governments to gain control and enforce vaccines from which they profited. So that perfectly predicted the 2019-2020 COVID pandemic. Again, that movie was V for Vendetta. I've talked about that before. And yeah, again, Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci in 2019, or maybe even before that, made public predictions of pandemic viruses, in the need for injected gene therapies, and the need for vaccines. And again, the president of Pfizer said that Pfizer, I believe this was in 2019, he said Pfizer would have to make billions of doses of vaccines to respond to an upcoming pandemic. So obviously they knew what was going on. Again, some of you think that this is just a virus that mutated spontaneously in a food market in Wuhan, China, and it just happens to have been the same city where the United States was funding gain-of-function research to make coronaviruses more pathologic and for them to escape immunity and also to escape vaccine defenses. So you can pattern recognize or not do that, but that's, of course, completely up to you. Hope you're all doing well. And I'll make some other videos this weekend, somewhat trying to kind of forecast what's going on in the United States. But I think that this required some level of commentary and analysis. And I think we can all benefit from having the vocabulary to understand that when someone gives you a warning and it sounds kind of like friendly or whatever, maybe it's not, maybe it's an actual threat. But I think we benefit from having the language to describe that. Either ambiguous threatening, she calls it stochastic intimidation, but we could call it also, in my language, I would call it either an amorphous threat. It's kind of like a threat, but it's like, are you trying to help me? Or are you trying to advise me? Or are you trying to warn me? Or are you trying to intimidate me? That's kind of where this falls into, in that range. So I would call it, my language, my vocabulary for this would be amorphous threat, vague threat, veiled threat, possibly predicting insider information or someone who's trying to control or manipulate you or me or us. So hopefully all that makes sense. Hope you're all doing well. Take care and have a great holiday season. Bye.
When a president says enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas,